Welcome, Ivan. It's such a privilege to have you here because, so many reasons. One is my interview notes are in a Notion document, of course, so I can deliver feedback in real time.
Thank you, yeah.
Not that I would.
The black mode is not black enough.
And also, you now live in New York City, so you're a local.
Yeah.
Quick SF versus New York, settle the debate now.
Well, you got a real summer here. SF never have a summer. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little humid, right?
Yeah, but that's what summer is about.
Yeah. True. Okay. I am from Argentina, and our summers are really humid. So I'll take your word on that. Speaking of Argentina, you and I have a very similar, upbringing. You in China, me in Argentina, but we came to building products and software engineering from a non-traditional computer science path. Maybe walk us through sort of your journey and your influences on who you are today and what Notion is today.
Yeah, I learned how to code when I was a kid in China, doing like information Olympiad, and did not study computer science in college. Spent a lot of time in art, spent a lot of time doing science, and eventually discovered this thing called entrepreneurship. You can build a product and give it to other people. I actually remember using your WebSocket package back in like a decade ago.
We just relanded WebSocket support on Vercel so that the future Ivans can bring their products to reality in Vercel.
I think I was using your code before I know you, right?
And how do you come up with the idea of Notion, having been in the middle of all of these influences, right? Like art, engineering, craftsmanship. Tell us about how Notion comes to life.
Yeah, maybe because I wasn't from a computer science background, I'm trying to treat myself more like an outsider. And maybe because I'm not from the West, I try to learn the culture. And tech, in some sense, is kind of like a pop culture. We are chasing what's the latest framework, right? Coming from art, coming from science, you sort of have to respect the history, respect the past. Actually, let's do an experiment. Raise your hand if you know who Douglas Engelbart is. Raise your hand if you know who Alan Kay is. Right, so it's about 1/10 of the audience. So Alan Kay and Engelbart, so if this is a physics class, it's as if I'm asking, raise your hand if you know who Isaac Newton is, right?
Wait, let's check.
Right.
Okay, good. So cooked.
So for tech industry, Douglas Engelbart and Alan Kay are the Isaac Newtons of our industry. But most people, like I mentioned, because very much a tinker and tech culture, we do not know the history. It's okay. It's totally fine. We're completely reinventing things. Sometimes we're reinventing flat tires, but oftentimes we're reinventing good things. I think coming from an outsider allows you to see the history a little bit more. And looking into the history, you sort of realize there's tons of good ideas about computing back in the 60s and 70s, and we only realized part of it, right? Alan Kay is the gentleman who invented desktop computing. Engelbart is the person who invented or gave us interactive computing. That's why he was known for inventing the mouse.
He also created the mother of all demos.
Mother of all demos. It's pretty much real-time collaboration plus document plus database thing back to 1960.
Were you studying those references as sort of the inspiration for Notion, or did you work backwards into them?
I worked backwards into it.
Okay.
Like my starting point, because actually came from my ex-girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, because most of our friends are artists. Then I have to, the year we're about to graduate, I have to make websites for everyone. Like I'm the only nerd in my friend circle, so I started building websites. I built 3 or 4 websites. I realized, wait a second, why don't we just build a tool so other people can build websites? And once you look into the history of website building, like hypertext, you click back for 2 more decades, you look into hypercards from the 80s. Another decade, 2 more decades, you look into Smalltalk, right? One of the first object-oriented environment programming languages. And you realize all these great ideas back in the 60s, 70s, we lost them. Somehow computing industry make the turn in the 80s that we haven't been able to recover many of those ideas. And that got me started wanting to create something like Notion. Back then, I wasn't sure whether it would be a business or product or company, but something related to this give normal people the expressive power about computing. So they can make things just like what programmers can do with computers without learning how to code.
In retrospect, it seems so obvious, especially given that prior art, that people would want this super immersive, real-time collaboration environment. What were some of the enabling technologies that made it possible for you? Would you say the web browser? Would you put the cloud in there? Because you had limited resources. It was just you and your co-founder and CTO, right?
Yeah. So this is like 2013, 14 era, right? Web back then wasn't that easy to build on top. I remember using Express framework, right? That's another framework from you guys. And React came around that time, right? React made things easier to build very complex things on the web.
Yep.
I think that's an enabler factor. In fact, we had to rebuild the company once because we betted on, raise your hand if you remember this thing called Web Component from Google, right? We bet on Web Component.
Malte might be somewhere here. He's mildly responsible for, no, Malte's behind AMP. Okay. Remember AMP?
Some vaguely remember.
He also discovered React and saw the light, and the rest is history.
Anyway, Web Component was fairly new, right? Chrome is sort of supporting it, but you sort of don't know, like, is the bug come from your own code or come from the underlying polyfill? We have to rebuild the company because, like, we're realizing we're building on Quicksand. And then we start on React, which is much more foundational technology to build a more complex product with. And that has been the notion that people are running.
You know, I've always been curious. I've been such a huge advocate of your product and design philosophy for the longest time. I onboarded a lot of people to Notion. And what makes Notion compelling is that you're not really introducing people to a technology per se. Like, you're not listing a set of features. In fact, you don't have I don't know if you've added this, but you don't have like a full color palette. You have a lot of restraints in the product design. Where does this philosophy come from of, focusing on the foundations and saying no, even though there's so much depth to the technology? You were using React, Socket.io, all of these cool things. How do you blend that with the craftsmanship that we see in the product today?
Because the angle is not about desktop publishing, right? If you use Word or Google Docs, you can make a rainbow color with it because fundamentally it's based on legacy you want to print it out. The starting position for Notion is all about computing. It's about semantics. So semantics, you just, give people markdown structure is good enough, and with some color, you should focus on the structure, the semantics, not a lot of rainbow colors. And that's why we invest more on things like having database as a primitive. Having relational database. If you use Notion, you can almost create mini apps with pages and databases and views on top. That's most of software landscape. So that has always been our focus. So we don't want to focus on building a design tool or building a desktop publishing tool.
There's a wisdom that some of the most successful pieces of software in history have actually been data structures. So the spreadsheet is a data structure being exposed to you. And I remember when I first saw Notion and the design around blocks, which transcends the concept of a paragraph. I can convert a block into different types. I thought it was such a compelling data structure to work with that happened to have a UI. Now, fast forward to today, you were pushing the envelope of technology then. What is the journey towards LLMs in incorporating AI and agentic capabilities within the product? When was the first time that you became convinced that the future of Notion was agentic?
Yeah, actually, before I talk about that, building with language model and building with classic software is very different, right? Like before language model is the boring years of building technology. Like nothing changed for almost a decade, right? The best thing we got probably React, right? Socket.io maybe, right? And building for classic software is everything is predictable. You sort of like, if you can design something, you can build it. The real shift, now 4 years ago, when GPT-3, GPT-4 class language model came out.
Were you excited about GPT-3? What was your first personal moment with this tech?
I was playing we live in a mission in San Francisco back then. So our friends working in OpenAI, the labs, you sort of see the first version, maybe GPT-1, the first class version of it. You don't know what to do with it, right? It's like you can regurgitate some text. And you play with GPT-2 class. It's kind of cute. GPT-3, oh, you can do some marketing copy now, right? It's like a one-pager. It's the GPT-4 class that I consider like a religious experience.
Tell me more about this religious experience. Was it an epiphany that you experienced personally? Was it you imagining what it could enable for Notion, the product?
I would say both. It's like we're lucky to get early access to GPT-4 class during company retreat. This is like maybe September 2022, right? My co-founder Simon and I, without other company, got early access to GPT-4. So during the entire company retreat, we lock ourselves into a hotel room, build the first version of a Notion.
Okay, so company offsite, and you and your co-founder are in a room.
I had to give a keynote. So a company keynote like this, open a retreat.
Incredible. You were like, duty calls. I have to lock myself in this room and start adopting this technology myself.
Yeah, build the first prototype. And because we're in Mexico, there's a photo of us with 20 water bottles on the table because you cannot drink tap water, right? But we're just hacking in our hotel room for the entire week.
I know about that. Yeah. I have stories.
Okay, great. But that was a religious experience because like GPT-4 class is no longer just marketing copy regurgitation. The thing can think. It can make you a pretty good, okay writer. They can do some basic triage. So that became the first version of Notion AI.
I want to emphasize this because I remember I had not heard this story until now. And I remember from the outside noticing that Notion was adopting AI very quickly and in a way that was tasteful, that didn't feel random. And I think now I'm processing the why, which is that you developed an intimate connection and knowledge of the technology. I think there's a parallel world in which other C-suites or CEOs decide to say, oh, my chief AI officer will take care of the AI strategy, whereas you took it on your own hands. Do you know why? Why did it feel so personal that you had to really get it?
It's kind of fun. Like if you play with new technology, like of course you want to build things with it, right? And then it's the fast iteration loop. It's just me and my co-founder play with it, see what it can and cannot do with our current product, and make decision from there.
Yeah, I've been noticing this trend of founders and CEOs going back to building. I think the bar is getting lower to making something happen, to tinker with technology. I'd never seen, I tweeted about this recently, never seen so many CEOs, public company CEOs, going back to building. So, and I think it's fun.
Excuse, especially like the past year, right? So we have a meaningful step change since November last year. That's actually the second religious experience was last Christmas. Because as we all know, last year there's so much things happened.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, let's just take a break, go somewhere like we do nothing for Christmas.
Where do you go?
Mexico.
I thought there's something with Mexico. It's in the water.
Beach is water,
you have to
right?
go.
Yeah.
It leads to AI innovation.
It probably does. So we went to Mexico, and we just hang out on the beach. It's like, okay, let's build a game, right? The coding agent gets good now. So together we start building a game. It's really good. And actually, I text you so many times, hey, I give you product feedback about your Vercel. Like, let's host something on Vercel. Let's host it on Vercel, actually.
Yeah.
The religious experience is like you ask the coding agent something, and you can take a nap, and you wake up, sometimes it's done.
Yeah.
Usually you do this to another human. It's become religious, like you ask the machine this thing, it's not 100% accurate, but it gets done sometimes.
Yeah.
That to me is like, wow, this thing is at different level. As we return, I think many other operators come back from Christmas break. They introduce all those new tools.
This is the Claude Opus moment, correct?
Yeah.
Was it the release of? I remember over the holiday break. Typically, during the holidays, people take time off, and we see a plateau of deployment rate on Vercel, or even a decline. but we saw an increase because everyone went home and discovered this new model and started building and shipping, and the rest is history.
Like my GitHub is like nothing, lights up during Christmas, all green.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically, I think that's not just me, so many people. No.
It kind of runs against the common wisdom of like, don't ship on Fridays, you're not gonna catch the media wave, or don't ship during the holidays. It almost seems the opposite when you're shipping something that people will actually use every day. How did that knowledge of AI or the religious experience permeate through the company? How many employees did you have at this time? Did you have an emergency all hands? I've seen the light, coding agents are the future. How do you go from sort of this conviction that you had, and how do you merge it with the conviction of people working at Notion?
I think we're lucky that because the first religious experience was end of 2022, so we have been starting the cycle for quite some time now.
I see.
So by and large, all engineering team, even a year ago, fully on coding agents. And most operation, we're dogfood our own products or like async background agent product that run a lot of company process. So most of the company are on that already. But I would say that so much of this is you have to experience it. It's kind of learning how to ride bicycle or learning how to swim. You cannot describe it. You have to learn from feeling this. Then you can start delegate more and more things to machines.
You had this awesome, shall I say, banger tweet the other day where you spoke to designers and you said, designers, you have to think about APIs first now, UI last. And keep the UI dumb. For coming from someone that's been in the design world for so long, a poster child, if you will, of how do you think about this transition that we're making from UIs to APIs, from web to websites to MCPs, and how are you thinking about this transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. I like to think this thing in terms of constraints, right? The constraint here is most likely the next 10 billion knowledge worker coming online as not humans are agents. They are your customer. They are our customer. They are Notion's customers. And agents, they're blind. They don't see buttons. They want a semantic. They want an interface. They want API. They want CLIs. They care about the data. They don't care about buttons. So as designer, the first constraint usually is you need to place those buttons on a screen that other people can understand. Then you think about how to communicate the semantics and all the other things. That's a little bit backwards words. Design for agent meaning designing like what are the real semantic, what are the API of your business logic. And I guess another thing agents really good at is they can dress up this in many different, like good enough UI really quickly. So what we've been telling our designers, just product team in general, do not start with the UIs. Like all designer, the first habit is open up a white piece of paper, start drawing boxes. Resist that urge. If anything, write bullet lists. If anything, like think about the semantic of what you're trying to do, then the UI will come a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, the way that I think about this is I try to think about what would the CLI look like? What would the interface to the coding agent look like? We talked about agent infrastructure today. Agentic infrastructure, and we think very similarly because we're thinking about our customer not being the human developer alone, but the coding agents of the human developer. And there's going to be so many more of those coding agents than humans in the future.
Like what you guys are doing, basically providing infrastructure for those agents, right? What we're trying to do is provide infrastructure for knowledge work agents.
Amazing.
Right?
You have this banger reference of Marshall McLuhan. It's we shape our tools, and therefore our tools shape us. We're now shaping the most powerful tools any of us have ever built. So what do you think when this future plays out of the next 10 billion knowledge workers are agents? How are agents going to shape us? Do you have a prediction?
I don't know. I think it's really hard to predict. It's easier to see the first order effect. It's very difficult to see the second order effect, right? You're holding an iPad, iPhone. Initially, we just thought that's a a combination of iPod plus browser plus your telephone.
Right.
Turns out there's things called social media. Turns out social media maybe should be banned for teenagers.
Yeah.
We do not see the second order effect of a lot of technologies, especially powerful ones. And I think that will be the case. It already is the case for something as powerful as a language model that can think like us.
Yeah.
So
it's a good call out because I've seen people try to simplify technologies or be too simplistic. They think that a new technology is an enumeration of capabilities, like it's an enumeration of features. But with agents, it's truly like these things are thinking. There's a lot of emergent behavior. These things are more akin to platforms. And speaking of which, I've seen Notion make a huge shift there into becoming a developer platform and inviting people to extend Notion, create agents, and even use Notion as the context layer for these agents and the brain for the agents. Can you tell me more about how you've spearheaded this transition?
Yeah, it's related to the earlier point because our future customer, majority of them are no longer just humans, but human plus agents. You need to make your product useful by those agents. You need to create good primitives that agent can use those primitives to power knowledge works, right? Historically, Notion actually not very developer friendly. If anything, the thesis is actually anti-developers because we want to create a visual programming environment for everyone, right? But right now, developers are just the translator of agents. If you make a really good tool for developers, means you make a really good tool for the agents. Means you make a really good tool for the future customers. That's why we're put a lot of effort in the past year, finally launched our Notion developer platform about 2 months ago, and give it a try. Some of our products are built on top of Vercel, right? We're really proud of it. It's a change of our company DNA. I hope this crowd likes that product.
Yeah, I always tell people the easiest zero to agent is that you already have a Notion open and you can create an agent from there. But if you need to get more sophisticated, there's a developer platform where you can create and deploy your own agents that under the hood use Vercel infrastructure. So it's basically like the peanut butter and jelly of AI.
So we are peanut butter and jelly?
Both.
Yeah.
It's just delicious AI.
Okay.
Another point of alignment between Notion and Vercel is this idea of being the Switzerland of AI. You're not hearing me talk about one model favoring another model favoring another. I use all of them. I love the AI gateway being able to give me one token every model. How do you think about this idea of being Switzerland in a world of labs trying and verticalizing more of their capabilities or customers locking themselves in? And what's good for business in this world?
Well, the rational thing for business, like for a company like Vercel and Notion, is to be the Switzerland, right? The fact is just different model are leapfrogging each other every week, every month. So it's a better rational not to pick a side. Second is, at least we believe you need to focus on what you're good at, focus on your expertise. Vercel is building primitives for developers. Notion is building primitive for knowledge workers. We need to double down building a better primitive. In this case, our shared customers are agents. Then you can figure out which model can power those primitives and work well with those model providers.
Are you bullish in open models? What's your experience with them?
I'm really bullish about open weight models. I think, at least in our sector, it's very beneficial. So I wouldn't say, it's probably a spectrum, right? For coding, it still is you want the smartest intelligence possible. That's high end of the spectrum. On the low end of the spectrum, something like customer support. Like model has been smart enough for 2+ years. Notion is somewhere in the middle, knowledge work. You don't need as smart as coding, you probably something smarter than customer support. And currently, especially with GLM last couple weeks, the open-weight model is plenty smart for the middle chunk of use cases.
GLM is very impressive. The other thing that people have been talking about a lot is automatic routing. That feels to me like the best experience. I use Notion meeting transcripts a lot. I talk to my transcripts. You probably heard some of my feedback there. I talk to my transcripts a lot. And I really don't care what model. Like I want to trust you to pick the best model for the task. And I also care a lot about speed. right? So
I think the model meeting those summarization doesn't take that much intelligence.
Right.
Like its model has been plenty. So you could do routing with them.
What are some of the things that you're excited that you can kind of try and predict about the future? So we were talking earlier, for example, I really think that models getting faster can create some discontinuities because going from, even so if you want to try GLM, we have a GLM 5.2 fast on AI Gateway. It's kind of a crazy experience just how fast that thing goes. But there's models hitting the market are going to be 5 times, 10 times faster. That might change the kinds of interfaces that we create or how we design them. How are you thinking about the future of designing for agents at Notion?
Well, I think first, your product offering, figure out where you sit on the intelligence spectrum of the need. For us, knowledge, we're somewhere in the middle, right? And it's fortunate enough that OpenWay model is intelligent, it's good enough for our needs. So then it's about building your expertise as a product offering in the market to work closer with the model. RL the model, work with the model, make inference more efficient. I think more companies are start doing this as the model become demystified, as more and more use cases no longer need the frontier intelligence. I'm actually really looking forward to this because for the longest time we treat model just as straight up API, but if you can shape it, there's a lot more things you can do in terms of cost efficiency and once it's cheaper and faster, open up the product to more people.
Is Notion doing stuff with image and video models? You've always also been super detailed oriented and put a lot of craft into even the profile pictures of your colleagues on X. Have you been able to ship? Do the image and video models live up to your quality bar?
I think we're using Gemini class out of the box. If anything, we're trying to do both, right? Give our customers, users, the access to image models so they can add a diagram or presentation of your Notion doc really easily. At the same time, working with the Met Gallery, the institutions who have the canonical art pieces or canonical visualizations of things and embed it into as a recommended page cover or background in Notion. Because one time you go into the future, getting with the model generating more things, I think it's also important for human to look into the past, because a lot of those past things are beautiful and they have meaning to people. We should bring them more into our users too.
Amazing. We're down to 2 minutes left. I have a rapid fire lightning round. Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right. One word for Notion right now.
Refounding.
Wow. What books are on your bedside table right now?
I'm reading letters by Frank Lloyd Wright to other architects at the moment.
Amazing. I love this one. A feature you killed that you still miss.
Slow Notion. Oh, still miss?
Miss. I don't miss slow Notion.
I don't usually miss.
Slowtion.
Yeah. A feature I killed. You used to have more color than Notion. We removed most of them. You only have like a dozen.
I propose black and white.
Okay.
If you merge it in, put them in the credits. Custom agents, workers, or the external agent API. Which are you personally most excited about?
I'm really excited about workers. Well, number one, powered by Vercel. Number two, it's like it makes Notion database more of a system records, can connect with any other external data sources. We take care of the syncing, we take care of the resuming, we take care of conflict resolution, all the hard stuff for our customers.
Yeah, one distinct advantage you guys have is that the world has already trusted you to be integrated into everything. Mm-hmm. It's plugged into our Slack, it's plugged into our Salesforce. So with 5 lines of code, you can probably bring a ton of value through workers to Notion. Coding agent of the week, what are you typically using these days?
Well, my muscle memory with terminal is more Claude Code, but if I use the desktop app, I Codex.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Taste or velocity, if you can only keep one.
What do you think? You know me.
Well, I'll say velocity that begets taste, but that feels like cheating. because it's like saying both. But I do tend to answer this question with, you develop your taste by getting a lot of shots on goal and running lots of experiments on Vercel.
On Vercel? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I probably pick taste. I think it's just another way to say wisdom, and the wisdom sounds nice.
Incredible.
Yeah.
We got a lot of wisdom today. Super thankful, Ivan. This was absolutely incredible. We'll see you in the streets of New York, I guess.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.
Incredible.